from Brazil to the UK to all over the US. Thank you so much for joining us on how to automate each stage of the enrollment funnel. Funnel, funny word, something we've been using since science class when we were kids, a little bit different when it comes to your business. So today, myself and Lisa will be going through some of the steps on how to automate and how to optimize your funnel. So my name is Mike Hook. I am our Vice President of Sales, and with me is Lisa.
Good morning. I am our Vice President of Education and Training. I'm going to just do my thing, Mike. I'm the color person here. I love childcare CRM. We are a software company, but in my heart, I'm a childcare person. My background is all field work. From assistant teacher to director, assistant director, district director, COO of a company. I am all about childcare, and I understand what's happening in your seat, and that's sort of my purpose for being here, to make sure that we're really addressing things that are very practical for you and where you're coming from.
So I love it, Lisa. You say you're the color person, and what that really means is you've experienced how to do this as a childcare organization, someone who has run it at a high level, from working with all of our customers here as well. And this is where we get this information from. So how do we know? We've got wonderful people at Childcare CRM like Lisa, with a wealth and depth of knowledge from all sides. We've also been in business for 13 years. So we have over 5,000 centers on our platform that we gather best practices and information from. That is over 5 countries. And as you can see, that's a lot of leads, a lot of enrollment conversions, and a lot of revenue. So the things that we're talking about today and that we're going to go over are current 2022 best practices from a wide range of companies and countries. And so what we're going to talk to you about today is we're going to walk you through your center's enrollment funnel, and then walk you through how that looks compared to the parent enrollment journey. We're going to go through the parent experience and how that affects enrollment and retention, as well as how to optimize each enrollment stage with automation. So to kick things off, this is a funnel. I would imagine, for everybody who's here, you run something very similar at your centers and with your business. You have a new lead, family comes in. The next thing that you look at is, well, did they schedule a tour? Then after that, did they actually come and did they complete the tour? Are they registered? Did they get to a wait list? And then finally, do they get to enrolled and that first day that they start? When we think about this, these are all things that our business wants to happen. So this is framed in the light of, well, you as a childcare owner or as an organization want parents to come in as new leads. You want parents to schedule a tour. You want parents to complete that tour. And then you want them to get registered. You want them to get enrolled. Now, like any funnel, you're not going to be 100% top to bottom. Parents will go somewhere else. They won't get back to you. They'll miss their tour. They'll register, but then they won't show up for the first day because they've gone somewhere else. All of these things can happen. This different parent behavior within this funnel. But there's a reason why all this happens. And the reason is because this is how parents actually buy. So when you think about your funnel for your business and for your centers, number one is, do you have a standardized funnel? Do you have a standardized way to look at each one of your centers and how they're operating? And number two, when you're looking at that funnel, have you actually set it up with the parent's buying journey in mind? And so when we talk about this fallout, parents deciding to go somewhere else, really what it comes down to is, well, how well have you set up your centers and your business to engage with parents in the way that they see fit, that matters for them, and that will pull them along the decision-making journey, and that will pull them into a yes for your center, or if you own multiple centers, one of your centers that's nearby that you can get them into as well. And so as we sit here, wanted to talk about where are some of the things that you might not be thinking of? What are some of the pitfalls that happen because you're not really toned into this parent buying journey? And the first thing is it all starts out with parents begin researching the centers online. So 80% of all millennial parents or all parents today are millennials. They've grown up with the internet. They've grown up with fast research. They do everything online first. Very rarely is a parent just going to drive by a center and be like, oh, I want to put my kid in care. What they're going to do is they're going to drive by, they're going to put a note down, then they're going to look it up on Google later. They are looking for you. And what that means is they're not only looking for you. It means that there's a bigger group out there. So making sure that when they do search for you, you've got a really strong website that's got good information and that's easy to read is critical. If you miss on this step, well, parents are going to default to the better website, right? Again, you want to make sure that you look like everything else your millennial parents are engaging with. So what could that look like? Do you have your curricula on your website? Do you have your teachers on your website? Do you have your classrooms, your centers, all your information? If you're missing really any of these things that would make a parent feel comfortable in saying, oh, these guys really have it together, they're going to take excellent care of my child, you could lose a parent potentially before they even submit an inquiry, because this is how parents buy today. Now, when a parent expresses interest, and one of the things that we know, again, millennial parents, speed to reply is really quickly. So how are you making it easy for parents to reach out to you? Do you have a contact us form on the website? Do you have easy access through Facebook if you advertise there? Do you make it easy for them to call in, to text, to really even walk in and do a tour on the fly if that's something that you offer? Are you giving them the ability to schedule their own tour because you've made it so easy for them to research you up front? They know they want a tour right away. How are you allowing parents to express that interest in you? If you're doing it in only one or two ways, you might be missing out on parents who don't want to walk in your center or don't want to call you. They want to fill it out online. So how parents express interest, making sure that it's easy for them to come to your center, responding to them immediately. Some of that drop off that we see from a new lead coming in and getting a tour scheduled is just because 2 to 3 days later, you respond to a parent, they've already got a tour set up somewhere else that's been completed. They don't need to see your center anymore. So getting them in quickly, capturing it, and then completing that tour. So how are you putting your best foot forward? Are you talking about all the programs that matter to that family? Are you talking about if you've identified that parent has a peanut allergy, are you talking to them in that way? Right? So on these tours, how are you making it feel personalized? How are you bringing them into the mix? Finally, when a parent's ready to enroll, how easy is it to get paperwork out? And by paperwork, I don't mean pen and paper. I mean the enrollment paperwork. Millennial parents are used to doing everything online. People are buying $1 million homes without ever stepping foot in them online today. I could have never imagined doing that probably 5 years ago even, but your buyers can. So again, this is another one of those areas where your parents, when they come on this journey, want to be able to engage the way that they're used to, not how you're used to. If you put them on a wait list, what information are you giving them to keep them up to speed with your center? Or are you just putting them on a wait list and saying, oh, they're parents, they have to come to us. Or, oh, they're parents, they've already chosen us. Well, how many times have we chosen something and changed our mind? So keeping those parents engaged with information that's at a premium, and then making it really easy for them to pay their fees online. Again, most millennials don't own checkbooks today. If you make them come in with a check, if you make them go back and forth from the bank, back and forth from their house, if you make this hard for them, someone who makes it easy will win, even if they're not the better center. And I think that's the important thing when you think about the parent buying journey, as opposed to just the funnel from before. You don't have to be the best if you make it the easiest. You should strive to be, but if you're the best at engaging your families and you make parents feel the best, that is a recipe for success. paired with everything else. So Lisa, wanted to know some of the thoughts and things that you had to add into this when we think about the parents and how they buy.
Absolutely. I think one of the hardest things that we do in childcare is keeping track. And so you made some really great points, Mike, especially when you're talking about that tour and that enrollment piece. We want to know, hey, this is the family where the parent is a police officer and they're very concerned about security. And during that tour, we want to highlight those things. And keeping track of all of that information can be difficult. Same thing with that parent enrollment experience. I mean, that paper, we may not realize how subliminally that turns people off, because they're thinking, hey, why am I looking at pieces of paper where I'm repeating myself, answering the same questions over and over? Is this center not up to speed with technology? Do they not understand today's world where they're asking me to come in and pick up paper and then re-deliver paper back to the center? So there's some things that we really want to look at that send an underlying message to our families. And we want our quality of care to be reflected in that initial journey. Because if we're not getting those leads and capturing the people and having them enroll, they're never going to get to experience the quality. And so we need to do everything that we can to get them to that point, to make that an easy, seamless process for them.
Isn't that so? I think that's just such a good point. And that's so true. Like having how you engage with parents reflect your care, because parents are going to think about it that way. They 100%, every interaction that you have, they're going to use it as a way to gauge how you're going to treat their child. And
100%. And this is a horrible story, but I'm going to share it because it's true. You have a parent come in and they're talking with you during that tour. If you have a dead plant on your desk, that's awful. And you might not have thought about it because in your busy day, it doesn't make a difference. But the parent sees that and thinks, goodness, they can't even take care of a plant on their desk. How are they going to care for my child? This is that same sort of little tiny detail that you might be missing. Hey, if that family, if this center is not up to date on technology for enrollment, are they going to prepare my child fully, for their academic experience when they don't understand it themselves?
And as we move on to the next steps here, this does reflect your enrollment and retention. I personally have paid more for things in my life because they are easier. If you are giving parents what they want, when we talk about some of the things that bring the parent buying journey along, right? Those quick responses, a good website, good information there. When you give them self-service options, online forms, when you make it so that everything you do is in sync, like to Lisa's story about the plan, right? When everything is reflected together, you come off as a really strong, good organization that has it together, that can take care of my child, which is the most important thing in the world to me. And I'm going to pay more for that. So, what you can see here, and the numbers aren't always sexy, but they are important. So when you think at $900 a month in tuition, that's almost $11,000 a year for each family. Every family that falls out of that funnel, 11 grand, 11 grand, 11 grand, gone. Versus if you build a wait list, that's money I can count on later when a seat opens. That's money I can count on when a seat opens. Optimizing this is not only about the dollars and cents. That is the result of you being able to go into your community, engage with these families, and give them exactly what they want, which is ultimately what you want too, a great care program with a strong financial backing. So before we go into the next phase, which is actually going to be our actionable tips on how you can optimize each stage, we had a poll and wanted to know from everybody here on the call, do you know at which stage you're losing the most enrollments, where families are saying no? Is it during that initial inquiry, right when a parent reaches out, before you can even get a tour scheduled? Is it after they schedule a tour? Is it after they've completed a tour? Is it when they're completing the enrollment paperwork. Or if you don't know, no problem. That's part of the reason why you might be here today. So we're seeing we got a handful. We'll give it a little bit more time here, maybe another 15 to 20 seconds to let everyone think about this and respond. So early on, we're seeing a pretty good number of you are losing families during that initial inquiry. Right away, that's where we're seeing the most from the group. So we've got a little bit over half of everybody who's responded. So thank you for those who responded. We'll leave this open for about 5 more seconds. If anybody else wants to join in on the poll, we'd love to know. All right. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing this. So definitely during the initial inquiry, we're seeing about 45% of respondents. That's where you are losing those enrollments right away. So that's a great segue right now into the next section here. And Lisa, I'm going to turn it over to you for how to help all these people right now who are saying they're losing leads right at that new inquiry.
Yeah, that and look, that completely makes sense with what we see happening in the day-to-day. Our centers are incredibly busy. The job that they're having is so multifaceted. They wear so many different hats, and a lot of times we're asking them to wear hats that maybe maybe they're not comfortable with, or maybe they're not familiar with. So what we're talking about here with the optimizing at each step of that process for the parent is, how do we make it easier? But not just for parents, how do we make it easier for staff too? And the first thing that we know from our research that Mike shared with you before is that speed to action is incredibly important. The quicker that we are able to respond to parents when they inquire, the more likely they are to stick with us throughout the journey. First follow-up is very, very important and urgent. What parents are expecting when they're doing something online is that they're going to submit and they're going to get some kind of a confirmation or an acknowledgement that that new inquiry has been received. Again, it's all about that speed to response. So we want to make sure that we're increasing our chances of enrollment by replying right away. And I don't want that to give you the impression that you have to sit on your phone or at your computer waiting for a lead to come in order to respond right away, because there are automated processes and automated tools like childcare CRM that do that for you. So there are things that you can put in place to automate those responses, responding to new inquiries immediately. As soon as they fill out that form on your website, or as soon as they schedule a tour, that they're getting some kind of a confirmation, a notification that says, yes, we've received your lead. We know that you are interested and we're going to respond accordingly. That, I think, is the most important part there with the response, is the speed. The second thing is, when they're inquiring and when they're online and they're excited enough to put in an inquiry form, they're excited enough to schedule a tour. And let's not lose that momentum. So same thing, if you are able to get that family engaged enough to fill out the tour, and then you can get them to schedule that tour immediately, you're going to increase your chance of conversion success, converting them from inquiry to enrollment by 83%, just by giving them a way to schedule that tour on their own. Now, a lot of what I've heard about people scheduling the tour is, we don't want to just have open enrollment times, or there's things that come up and we're not able to tour when we thought we were. Using tools to schedule those tours. having things that allow you to set your schedule of when you are available and when it works. And hey, you know what, I just found out that my accreditation validation is coming up. I'm not going to be able to do any tours on this day. Great, I can block that day out. You want parents to have that great experience of being able to choose when to tour, but you also want to make it convenient for your staff that you're having times available to tour when it works for them. So kind of back to that optimization. If a parent is online and they filled out your inquiry form and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and they're up doing a feeding and they want to schedule that tour, give them the opportunity to do it, because we know that the more quickly that they schedule and come in to visit, the better your odds, the increase of your odds of moving them then towards enrollment. Once they have that tour scheduled, so we're kind of working down your funnel, but on their journey. So your funnel starts with them inquiring, then it goes to that tour scheduled. Our goal is to get them to show up. You know, we saw the funnel goes like this. We lose people. We have people fall out of the funnel between scheduled and showing up. And so we want to make sure that they know we're expecting them. You know, if you go to you get an invitation to a party and you RSVP, that host is expecting you to show up and they're excited that you're going to be there. And that's what we're letting them know. We want to make sure that we're reminding them when that tour is going to happen, and we're giving them the opportunity to be excited with us. The important thing about notifications is you want to let them know, hey, you've scheduled the tour, but then a follow-up reminder closer to the time. We've been there. We know what happens with our families. You know, they might have scheduled a tour for 12 o'clock. Baby wakes up with a fever and they're involved in that and they forget that the tour is going to happen. Sending out that reminder that you have that tour available and expecting for them is going to remind them, and they can maybe make a schedule change, or they can still stay engaged with your process. The next thing that we would want to make sure is, you know, we talked about, we're getting them inquired, we're making it easier, we're removing barriers for them to schedule that tour. And I think one of the barriers that I didn't even talk about with the scheduling the tour is the back and forth. With the back and forth, we still do that in childcare, where somebody will inquire, they'll give us their phone number, we'll try to call them back. They're busy, they don't answer the phone, they call us back, we're busy, we're in a classroom. We're just trying to give them easy ways to do that. Another thing that we want to make easy for your staff and for the parents is that experience once they come in. We want to improve that actual tour experience. And one of the ways we can do that is by giving ourselves some clues, some reminders. Now, I want to be very clear. I am not suggesting a scripted tour. That is never my suggestion. I don't think that you should have kind of I'm always going to say this, I'm always going to say that. However, we all have sort of a feel and a flow of how our center works. And so by having some talking points, just some things that are important that we want to make sure that every parent is aware of on that tour, that really helps us to standardize the tour and to know what's working and what's not working. You know, if I'm telling every parent about something wonderful and I forget to tell 3 parents, that's probably losing some impact. So if we know that every time we talk about our playground schedule that those parents enroll, then that's something we want to talk about on every tour. And so there are tools available, specifically with our tool, where you can map out what are those talking points when we get to the infant room door. What are the things we want to talk about there? When we get to the playground, what are the things we want to talk about there? That's going to help us to make sure that we're highlighting what needs to be highlighted. We're going to save the staff some time because they remember the information that they need. And we're going to increase that overall quality of the tour. We know that this helps to then improve the conversion to enrollment, sorry. And then this happens a lot. It's because, you know, we're not necessarily people who are trained in sales. We are trained in care and we are trained in education. And so we, a lot of times, will have the tour process happen and then we kind of get stuck. We're not really sure what to do. They say, okay, I'm going to think about it. And you say, okay, bye. And then that's it. We don't have sort of those automated processes or the ways to follow up. And sometimes, and Mike mentioned this before, sometimes that's what it comes down to. You know, sometimes we know that the average parent is going to tour 3 centers. And if I've toured 3 centers and I'm finding them to be offering good quality care and they're all sort of convenient location wise, Sometimes it might just be that number 3 center who took the time to follow up and say, hey, thank you for coming in for the tour. Where are you on your experience? If you toured other centers, are there questions I can answer? You know, maybe they pointed out something at another center that you have, but you forgot to point out, hopefully not with the talking points, but that little bit of follow-up, that bringing your organization back to the top of the mind, back to the front of their enrollment experience can be all of the difference. And so the other thing that we want to use this piece of communication for after the tour is helping the parents understand kind of where to go. A lot of times these are new parents. They go on the tour and they don't even know. They're like, okay, what's next? And giving them some prompts, helping them, walking with them during their enrollment journey, again, can be that thing that makes something very different for you, that makes them lean toward you in their decision. Sending emails and text reminders post-tour can accomplish those things for you. And I don't mean a thing where you have to keep a list and say, yes, I sent them a follow-up, yes, I sent them a follow-up. Automate all of that for yourself, for your staff, and for the parents' benefit on their enrollment journey. Then we're looking at, once that tour is completed and we're sending out communications, you know, we're sending thank yous and we're sending reminders about what's next. We really want to have ways to make that personal, because what we don't want to do is take the people out of the enrollment process. We are a very unique business model, and I challenge you, if you want to throw in the chat, there are very few businesses where you see your customer face to face, twice a day, every day. That's the reality of what we do. And so we are very much a people business, and we are very connected to people. And we want that connection to start in our first communications with them. And so we want those communications, even though they're automated, even though those communications might be happening without our intervention, we still want them to be very personal. We want them to have the person's first name on them. We want them to come from me as the center director, as an individual, as the business owner. We want a name attached to that. Again, all in the hopes of making this a personal process for that person who's making a very personal decision. And then we want to talk about online enrollment. We want to make, again, remove all of those barriers. How quickly can we get these things to happen for the parents? One of the things, there's a lot of things on this slide, but the one that I think is most important is that we found when we were doing some research with our many, many customers, on average, it took about 2 weeks for families to return their paper forms. And I stress their paper forms, because what we're asking parents to do right now in our industry is, yes, they make the decision. They've probably thought it over from their time of tour. And we say, great, now you have some paperwork to fill out. And so we bring them back in just to pick up a packet of paperwork. And then they're taking that home and they're filling it out. And then they're needing to, again, come back into the center to deliver our paperwork. This is not what they are experiencing elsewhere. Mike mentioned people can buy $1 million houses online. They're not having to fill out mounds of paperwork. It's redundant for the family. You know, they're having to make 2 trips just to pick up and deliver paperwork. If you actually take a look at that paperwork itself, it's very redundant. On average, we're asking parents to fill out their own name 9 times on our paperwork. That's just on average. Some of you maybe more, some of you a little bit less, but 9 times just to fill in their own name. There has to be an easier way. And so there are definitely things out there. I just want to make sure that we are differentiating between a digital online process and paper, because sometimes people think that because they send the family the initial paperwork as a PDF, that they're eliminating the barrier. Mike is smiling because he knows this is true. Actually, we're creating a bigger barrier. One of the things we know about our millennial parents is they don't have printers. And so we're sending them a PDF that they have to figure out how to print some way to then fill out with paper and pencil, and then they're going to re-deliver it to you. So maybe you have eliminated one step of them having to come in and pick up the paperwork. But honestly, if they had to figure out where to print it because they couldn't do that at home, it might have been easier for them just to come and pick it up. So we really want to evaluate those tools that we're using to make sure that they're not creating barriers when we think that they are actually eliminating barriers. Digital process for parents takes that 2-week average time of filling out paperwork down to about 4 days because it's easy. They can come into it and go out of forms on their schedule. Maybe they're going to fill out forms after their kids are asleep at night, and they can do their online research while they are filling out forms. And by that, I mean, when we need to know the dentist's phone number, that's not something they know off the top of their head, but they can be online, look that up, and get your paperwork filled out very quickly. And so when we're at that registered and waitlist stage, we want to get all of those things very quickly. And when you're doing this in a digital process, and you don't have a lot of mounds of paper that you have to keep track of because you'll be able to have that in a digital format, my suggestion, my best practice is get everybody to fill out the paperwork. Get your registered people who are going to start, get your waitlist people who are going to start in the future, get them to fill it out now so that when you call, they can start next day or they can start next week. There's not that lag in there of, yes, you're on the wait list. Now you have to fill out paperwork and then we're going to get you started. Let's make that process very, very quick and easy for both parents and staff who are involved.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it too, with the paper packets or fillable PDFs or even PDFs to send out. You work so hard to get a parent to be like, yes, I would like to enroll my child at your center. And then you give them this paper packet. The only places that I go to regularly, and I would warrant that many people here go to regularly, that still deal with paper are car dealerships and doctor's offices. And nobody likes either of those. So you don't want to be like the car dealers or doctor's office, who, by the way, are still going digital now. So you want to make parents excited through the enrollment process. And I think that's what Lisa was really getting to, especially because millennial parents now, women are not stay-at-home moms like they were in previous generations. They are working. They get fulfilled from work. They're staying at work longer throughout their pregnancy. If it is that first-time parent, make it easy for them to do the work that they still enjoy and are fulfilled doing. And then they can fill out the paperwork at night. Like Lisa said, the ability to do that has cut down the time so much. And isn't that a wonderful thing that you can do to continue to support your parents, especially the first time ones, through those pregnancies leading up to the first day? And where that leads to next is being able to make an easy payment online. So again, millennials, they don't have checkbooks. They use Venmo to pay their friends, to pay their rent, to pay for everything. They use their online banking systems. They just don't know checks. And if they do, guess what? Most banks now, if you sign up for a new bank account, a lot of them aren't issuing checks or they charge for checks. So now you might have your millennial parents need to go to the bank to get a check. So just like we talked about the paper packets being cumbersome for parents without a printer, the back and forth, impeding with their work, well, you might now be sending a parent to the bank to get a check if they don't have one. So again, making it easy, meeting these parents where they're at, giving them a nice, smooth way to finish the enrollment process. As an added benefit, you as a director or an organization will know that that parent has now paid you. Right? So there is actually a financial commitment by the parent, which reduces the risk that they might fill out this registration paperwork and go somewhere else. And you can split that up. Is it a waitlist fee? Is it a full-on registration fee? Are they different? Are they the same? Understanding that, communicating it clearly to your parents, giving them an easy way to pay that is also safe, secure, and familiar will be a big win for you and for them too. So we've covered a lot of information here, and some of the key takeaways: respond to your new inquiries instantly. That doesn't mean you have to sit and hover over your computer, hands on the keyboard, or be right there in front of your phone. but using technology that allows you to respond instantly, and then also enable parents to self-serve. So making it so that they can schedule tours online, so that they can reschedule those tours if they needed, all in line with your schedule, and then give them digital enrollment and payment so that they don't have to run around. It'll be simple, it'll be easy, it'll be on their schedule. Make sure that you're keeping parents engaged at every stage. So that means the reminders before the tours. It means the information that you send them after the tour about a curricular, or thank you for coming, or would love your information. It could be the automation, the emails you send for someone who's on a wait list, giving updates about the wonderful things that the current families and children at your center are doing, that they're going to be joining soon. And also use the available tools and technology to save time for parents and staff. This is a lot. There are very simple ways to do all of this that will not add any significant time to your day. In fact, it will do the opposite. You'll be able to do more in the same amount of time by using the technology available to you today.